Are you feeling exhausted, burnt out, and done with your job, but leaving doesn't feel like an option right now? Maybe you feel trapped financially, fear the consequences of leaving, don't see any other options, or don't even know what to do next. If so, know that you're not alone. I've worked with many clients in this exact situation, and in this episode, I'll dive deeper into the reasons why you're feeling trapped, along with practical tips to find a way towards more calm, energy, and freedom. Welcome to Calmly Coping. I'm Tati Garcia, a licensed therapist and speaker here to help high achievers stop overthinking and finally feel calm and confident. If that's what you need, then hit subscribe. Let's dive into the episode. So I polled my audience on YouTube and my email list. Thank you for those who responded. And this was the most popular option in both places. So hopefully this is an episode that will resonate, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, or you can send me a message by clicking on the link in the description. So let's talk about why it can feel so hard to leave a job that's draining the life out of you. Reason number one is money. For a lot of the clients I work with, the number one reason is money. Maybe the job pays well, or they've worked hard to get a certain lifestyle that now feels impossible to walk away from. Sometimes there are financial incentives for staying, like end of the year bonuses, stock options, or vested equity that they don't want to lose, and this can keep you feeling stuck. Reason number two is moving up. In many cases, there's a belief that the role you're in is a stepping stone. If you just stick it out, you'll be promoted or finally get the recognition that you've been working for. And reason number three is maybe you have no energy to explore other options. So you're exhausted. And when you're burnt out, it's hard to even imagine looking for another job, let alone a totally new direction, if that's what you're exploring. So that deep exhaustion makes it feel like you're too depleted to figure out what's next. So you might end up feeling stuck. Reason number four is fear and guilt. So there's the emotional weight. There's fear of making the wrong decision, fear of the unknown, and guilt often plays a role too, especially for high achievers or people pleasers who have been taught to prioritize other people's needs over their own. It can feel selfish or irresponsible to leave, even when the job is clearly harming your health. When clients are in this place, I often see them choosing the quote-unquote devil they know, because staying feels safer than stepping into uncertainty. Even if it's draining, it's familiar. And that familiarity can feel more tolerable than the anxiety of change. But here's what many people don't realize. If you're constantly tolerating something that's burning you out, it's likely because you've internalized a belief that your needs don't matter, or this is what you need to do in order to achieve success. Maybe you've been used to putting yourself last for a long time, and a job that asks too much of you just feels normal. And that's not a personal failing. It's a pattern that you've learned. And the first step is starting to notice it. And in fact, in my experience working with clients, I've seen this pattern show up over and over again. Without exception, every client I've supported through this has had some level of people-pleasing tendencies. And this is a habit of devaluing their own needs, ignoring their limits, and feeling responsible for everyone else's expectations. And it's not about a weakness. It's about long-standing conditioning that tells us to push through, be the team player, and not rock the boat. And over time, that conditioning can chip away at your well-being, harming you more than it is helping others. Studies show that, quote, people pleasers typically demonstrate qualities that render them valuable employees in professional environments. However, these same qualities can result in burnout and stress in the workplace. People pleasers may become overwhelmed with their responsibilities due to their inability to establish boundaries or decline additional work, which can result in potential exhaustion and excessive stress. Their reluctance to assert themselves may also lead to their contributions being undervalued, as they may be hesitant to advocate for promotions, compensation increases, or recognition for their efforts. Ultimately, this dynamic can result in a decrease in their job satisfaction and well-being, as well as an accumulation of frustration and resentment. Unquote. Now let's go deeper into the emotional and psychological reasons behind why you're feeling stuck, because even though it feels like it, it's not just about the paycheck or the promotion. You might find yourself frozen, paralyzed. You're so drained and overwhelmed that you can't take action, even though you know something needs to change. And the fear of the unknown stops you from moving forward, so you cling to what's familiar. You choose, like I said before, the devil you know, because the uncertainty feels even more unbearable than the burnout. And you might fully recognize that you're exhausted, but you still blame yourself. Maybe you think, I should be stronger, or everyone else seems to manage. Why can't I? When you don't see a way out, it's easy to feel helpless. So you do what feels safest in the moment and you stay. This isn't because you're weak, it's because your body and mind are doing their best to survive in the circumstances you're currently in. And underneath all of that is something even deeper, the emotional drivers that are keeping you stuck. Maybe you're afraid of failure. Maybe you're afraid of letting people down, or maybe you're holding onto a strong desire to be seen as competent, loyal, and successful. Those values matter. But when they go unchecked, they can tip over into self-neglect. And I also want to name another pattern I see all the time in this situation that I don't want to exclude. And this can be toxic or unsupportive workplace cultures. Maybe you never hear a word of encouragement, your boss is critical, passive-aggressive, or downright rude. And maybe you feel like no matter how hard you work, it's never enough. After a while, that kind of environment can chip away at your confidence, and it convinces you that you are the problem rather than the system around you. That can make it even harder to imagine that things could be different anywhere else. So you stay, not because it's working, but because you feel like things aren't going to be better elsewhere, and you're too depleted to imagine something better. And here's where research helps us understand what's happening. Studies show that when the demands of your job outweigh the support and resources available to you, so things like autonomy, feedback, or even just being treated with respect, you're much more likely to burn out. This is known as the job demands and resources model. And it confirms what I see in real life all the time. High stress and high pressure work environments, low support, and emotional labor without recovery is a fast track to burnout and exhaustion. So it's not just you. And it might not even be you at all if the environment that you're in is not conducive to feeling supported and getting the type of help you need in order to sustain this high workload that you may have. Essentially, the higher stress and higher pressure job you have, the more support you need. And oftentimes it can be the opposite. The higher stress and higher pressure jobs actually can provide even less support and negative feedback and critical workplaces. And sometimes when you're high achieving, it can even exacerbate that because you may unconsciously communicate that you're independent, you can do it all on your own. And so people might feel like they don't need help, they don't need support. And so this can even kind of worsen that dichotomy between the level of stress, workload, and expectations from you compared to the level of support you're receiving. We live in a culture that glorifies hustle and constant productivity. And in many workplaces, especially high demand environments, there's this unspoken norm that you're always supposed to be doing more, working faster, pushing harder, and meeting deadlines that leave no space for taking care of yourself. Unrealistic workloads and deadlines are probably the number one issue I see contributing to burnout. And over time, when you consistently go above and beyond, that becomes the new baseline. Whether that expectation is something that you've internalized or it's something that your workplace reinforces or both, either way, it becomes unsustainable. And if you're someone who takes pride in doing a great job, which most of my clients do, it can feel impossible to pull back because the expectation is to keep pushing, even when you're running on empty. So if you're sitting in that feeling right now and wondering, why can't I handle this? I want you to consider that maybe the system isn't built for your well-being. Maybe your exhaustion isn't a personal failure. Maybe it's a sign that your environment, your workload, or your role simply doesn't align with what you need in order to function and thrive. If you're feeling drained and stuck right now, but leaving your job doesn't feel like an option, I want you to know that there are still things you can do to protect your energy and create space for self-care. These are small intentional steps to help you shift out of survival mode and reconnect with yourself again. Step 1 is to regulate your nervous system daily. When your body is constantly stuck in fight or flight, which happens when you're chronically stressed, It's nearly impossible to think clearly or to make empowered choices. And that's why the first step is always regulation. So find just a few minutes a day, even 5 to 10, to slow down, reconnect with your breath, or do anything that gives your body a signal of safety. And I go much deeper into this in my episode, Escape Survival Mode and Heal Your Nervous System. I'll link it in the description below, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can click on the icon in the corner, whichever one it's in, to check it out. Step 2 is to set boundaries and protect your capacity. So this can start by starting to notice where your energy is being drained and where you might need to say no. Maybe it's time to have an honest conversation with your manager or with HR right now about how you're feeling and what kind of support is realistic for you right now. Maybe you need to build more intentional time into your evenings to fully disconnect. There are many ways that you can set boundaries. And if this resonates, then I recommend listening to my other episodes on how to really disconnect from work and an evening routine to calm your mind and disconnect from work. And I will link both in the description as well. And step 3 is to explore your options for support. If you're feeling completely depleted or emotionally overwhelmed, know that it is okay to seek professional help. Talking with a therapist or a psychiatrist can give you space to process, regulate, and begin healing. And in some cases, it may also be worth exploring options like short-term disability or a leave of absence if this could support your healing. And if you're not sure where to start, you can reach out to your human resources department if that's available to see what benefits or resources are available to you. Step 4 is to future pace your decision. If you're not sure what to do, try asking yourself, if I stay in this job exactly as it is for another 6 months, how will I feel? What about a year from now? Allow yourself to really sit with the emotional and physical cost of continuing. Sometimes we push through because we're focused on the short term, the bonus, the promotion, the approval, but it's worth asking, is that reward worth what you're currently sacrificing? And I want to leave you with a few ways to reconnect with a sense of possibility. Because even if nothing changes immediately, you can begin to reclaim a sense of agency and hope. So I suggest starting with this simple journal prompt. What would I choose if fear and guilt weren't in the driver's seat? Allow yourself to explore that without judgment. You're not committing to anything, you're just making the space to imagine the possibilities. And if you want something more practical, you can reflect on what is one small thing I could say no to this week that would protect my energy. And if you feel completely lost when it comes to what's next, that's okay too. Give yourself permission to not have it all figured out right now. Sometimes the first step isn't clarity, but actually getting more capacity. And your capacity grows when you slow down, listen to yourself, and give yourself room to breathe. Even if that happens in small moments, because those small moments build up over time. Just know that you don't need to have the whole plan. You just need enough space to take one small step in the direction of something that is more sustainable and more true to you. If this episode resonated with you, I want you to know that you're not alone and you don't have to keep pushing through if it's not sustainable. Take a moment to slow down, check in with yourself, and remember that your needs matter too. And if you're ready for a little extra support, feel free to check out my signature program, Calm, Balanced, and Confident. This is my 90-day comprehensive program to help high achievers stop overthinking, balance their time and energy, and tap into their unshakable confidence from within without having to change their job or overhaul their lives. This is all about internal change. The link is in the description below. And if you found this episode helpful, then I highly suggest you check out my episode on how to set boundaries without feeling guilty. You can click here if you're watching on YouTube to check it out. And if you're listening to the podcast, be sure to click on the link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, be calm.